I'm Andrew Joseph Keith. I'm an artist and sculptor. Today we're going to talk about just some useful things to think about if you're making a maquette or a little model for sculpting, especially stone sculpture. So the bases for this one's a short base for like more of a round one, but the bases I usually use is just a block of wood, just some scrap wood, and then just either a nail or a screw. This one's a short one, but they're usually a little bit longer. As far as the clay goes, I usually use Savant NSP medium clay. I really like that brand. I find it's less oily. It doesn't get kind of into your fingers as much. It's less oily, sticky. It doesn't smell as bad as some of the plasticine and other kind of non-drying oil-based clays, and so it has a little bit more wax in it. I use the medium. I've tried the hard, and if you live somewhere where it's warm weather a lot, then you might use the hard clay, but it is pretty hard. It's more like, almost more like wax than a clay. It's very hard, and so with this, what I did, I actually mixed some medium, some hard, and a little bit of soft just for a different color. So the nice thing about the NSP clay is you can actually melt it down and mix ones together if you want to change the hardness or color. Speaking of color, if you want to change the color completely, this one was a soft clay and it's still really soft, you can see. And it was originally this color, but I just added some crayon to it. So crayon has some pigment, a little bit of wax, similar makeup as this clay, and I found it didn't really change. So it was a fair amount of crayon, but I found it was added to the soft, and it didn't really compromise the texture of it or how well it sticks together or anything. So if you want to change the color of your clay, this one I just added black, and so you can see how it changed the color of the clay, but you can also experiment with other colors. And you can see this one is same block, but it has a nail in it, a little bit longer. With some maquettes, this one I started the other day, and it's a little bit more dynamic, a little bit longer of a shape. And so what I did with this one is I actually wrapped some aluminum wire around it and then bent it to give a little bit more support for the clay. And so that way there's a little bit more supporting it, especially in this thin area right here. So depending on the shape that you're doing, you might put some wire, or even maybe just staple down a wire to that and just use wire instead of clay, depending on how straight up and down. And so that's also something that you can do. Something to think about if it's going to be in stone, how difficult will that be, and kind of the shape. So with this one, if I wanted to do this one in stone, one of the things that my teacher said that I thought would be a really interesting idea is doing it in two pieces of stone. So maybe like a white marble right here and just a block that goes straight down, then another marble with the grain running this way, because if the grain's running this way, it's a little bit stronger and it's really thin up in this part. And if it was just one giant block, look how much I'd be losing as far as the shape of it. So but if I had two blocks and then I put them together with a really strong epoxy, it would kind of go along with the design, maybe at an angle. And so that's something to think about. If you have areas where the arms are out away from the body, that's going to be a really dangerous and tricky area. And so any way you can do to have it come and connect back with the body, just to give it some extra support, will make it less likely to just break off, and that would be unfortunate. This one I started just because I really like the shape. There was just a picture of a kind of a ballerina, and it was really interesting shape, and one of the arms is kind of down, one of them's up. This one I thickened it out in the legs, but even with it a little bit thicker, I don't think I would do this in stone, just because it's so thin at the part where the base would be, where it would connect to the base. Especially it would get even thinner than this. So that's something to think about. Like if you're working in stone, how thin is it gonna be? And there's these areas like right here where it really could break off, and that the whole sculpture is just supported right there. Think about those things. Be sure that it's structurally sound throughout. Another thing to think about is the shape that your stone starts in. So this one, I was thinking it would be good if it was just a block of stone that's pretty straight up and down, just kind of a block. But if it was a really round stone, I'd be losing a lot of material. And so if you have the piece of stone that you're going to work with beforehand, I would start out making a piece of clay the exact shape of the stone and then just kind of carving away just like you would at the stone. And that way you don't lose a lot of material, because you want to keep as much material as you can so that you're not wasting some of that material because stone's expensive. Another thing to think about as you're working on the maquette, be sure to look at it from every angle. That's just general 3D sculpture. You want it to be studied and looked at from every angle and really have everything figured out on the maquette before you start working on the stone, because the maquette you can change. It's really easy to modify. It only takes a few minutes just to change up and try different things. So try everything out on the maquette before you go to your actual stone piece, and that'll save you a lot of time and a lot of stone, because if you mess up on the stone piece, you lost that stone, you can't get it back. Whatever you're gonna try to figure it out on the maquette. That's what they're for. Even if you like free carving, which is just carving directly into the stone, I would recommend getting just some clay, having some clay next to you and being able to work it and work out areas and then free carve into the stone. Because if you don't have any kind of reference or anything, then it's just really easy for something to be off and for you not to notice as much. You just don't see it. If you have other questions or comments, please put them below, and be sure to subscribe. I love maquettes. They're your sketchbook.